I get discouraged for sure, and I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Hello and welcome to COS Indiana Live as we bring you Roundtable. The Roundtable segment is presented here every fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. We'll be focusing on education and discussion of the topics and challenges we all face as we use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Join us now as we bring you COS Indiana Roundtable with our MC, John Ackerman.
Welcome to COS Indiana Live Roundtable. I'm your host, John Ackerman. This is broadcast number 210 of COS Indiana Live. And this month's topic is child sex trafficking in the United States. This is not a happy topic. It's not a pleasant topic. It's not even comfortable to talk about. It is a dark, terrible idea, but it's happening, and we feel that we need to talk about it and bring certain facts to light. So I'm going to bring the roundtable panel on right now, and then we'll jump into it. Welcome, Tim. This is your first time on the roundtable, and good to have you here.
Thank you, John. It's good to be here.
Good to see you. Dale, haven't seen you in a long time, buddy.
Right. No, since about 5 minutes ago. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. Okay. You don't tell our secrets, man. Okay.
Oh, okay. I guess.
Who else is coming? Ken. Hi, Ken.
Hi, John. Hello, everybody.
And we've got one more. We've got Gary Harbaugh. Okay. Now that we're all present and accounted for, I want to give a definition. Human trafficking is defined as a crime that compels a person to provide labor or to engage in commercial sex acts. And when we talk about child sex trafficking, we're talking about kidnapping children and forcing sex acts upon them. Just a little over a month ago, on the 26th day of July, the Speaker of the House invited all 435 members of the House of Representatives to a viewing of the new movie, The Sound of Freedom, which tells the true story of Homeland Security agent Tim Ballard. He rescued 54 children in Colombia from human traffickers. According to the United States State Department, 50,000 children are trafficked in the United States every year. Think about that, 50,000. Private organizations claim that the number is a lot higher than that. So this is clearly a huge problem. But I've got a question for the panel. What does this have to do with Convention of States? Why is COS concerned about child sex trafficking? What does this have to do with the mission of Convention of States? And Gary, you want to give the first response to that question?
John, the Convention of States overriding objective is to awaken a political and spiritual reawakening in America. And human trafficking is a great moral wrong. And I think it behooves every American to be aware of it and to stand up and be counted as someone who wants to bring this to an end.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Tim, do you have a comment on that? Why is Convention of States concerned about this?
Well, I think it's a failure of administration officials to follow the separation of powers in the Constitution, which means that they administer and execute the existing laws. We have had laws against this, and we have had child sex, prostitution, etc., for a long time in our country. But it seems like in the last few years, with the lack of border control and the cartels taking more and more power, this is getting to be a bigger and bigger problem in our country. And I lay it back at the feet of our leaders who need to be term limited so that we can get some people in there that can fix these things. That's why it fits Convention of States to me.
Yes, one of our concerns is term limits for federal officials. Dale, do you have a comment on this question?
Yeah, I think, John, I'm kind of a takeoff on what Tim was saying, that, another one of the pillars of our resolution is to address government overreach and to rein in the broadened control of the government. And I do believe this issue, what is happening here is an offshoot of government overreach, political overreach, if you want to call it that, but it's an offshoot of policies that our government has implemented, and I think it's directly related to this issue. So, reining in the control and breadth of control of the federal government, I believe, does impact this issue. So.
Yeah, Dale, and particularly on this point, when the federal government says that our southern border is secure, that's an overreach, because anybody looking at it knows that it's not secure.
Right.
So it is relevant, apropos for Convention of States. Ken.
When we first started talking about this and tried to link up to where a Convention of States would fit in with this problem, I originally thought that maybe it was just one area on the overreach segment. But Tim brought up I think a very valid point on term limits, and if we dig a little deeper, I think we actually have all three of the areas that participate in how to combat this, and that would be the financial responsibility, fiscal responsibility. Because we're as taxpayers, we're paying for this. So it's coming. It directly affects the financial condition of the country as well. So I think all three areas have a take in this.
I hadn't thought of that one, Ken. Thanks for that insight.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a child who's been kidnapped from their parents, or I've read in some very desperate situations, some parents in some locales will sell their child to the traffickers in order to get money to buy food, which is just an unthinkable kind of thing. But here's a child who's been put in the control of traffickers and sent to a foreign country, in this case, the United States, and forced into what amounts to sex slavery, a life of a despicable life where they're forced to do unspeakable acts. And I want to ask the panel, for a child who's been put into that kind of a situation, what hope does that child have? What does his or her future look like? Dale, you want to take your first swing at this question?
I'll take a swing at it. I don't know. I don't know what hope a child would have, because the child is going to, unbeknownst to the child, I guess, but the child's going to come out of this, if I'm assuming he or she will come out of it, they're going to come out damaged, severely damaged. And I guess, really, while they're not aware of this, but the only hope they really do have is to be rescued in some way or another. And I think that's the only matter of fact, the hope is that people like ourselves can do something about this and get something done to stop it.
And we hope to come around to that. What can we do
right.
to help address this situation? Before we get there, though, we've got to stop and think about the depth of the problem. By the way, viewer, as you're watching this, if you have any comments or questions, you can post them. If you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, you can post them in the comments. And Ken is our internet watcher, and he'll get as many comments and questions up on the screen as he can. Gary, what's your take on hope for a child who's been trafficked?
I think their only real hope is to try to get out of it. And in that sense, they are probably not going to be able to get themselves out of it. They've got to be hoping that our government or someone somewhere will do something to get them out of it, because they're powerless and they've got to depend on somebody else. The 13th Amendment to our Constitution says that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude will exist within this country.
Mm-hmm.
And we should be making an outcry to our elected officials to tell them we want them to do all in their power to get this stopped.
Okay, well, there's not a whole lot of hope for this child, but Tim, do you have anything to add to this conversation at this point? Is there anything left for you to say?
Yeah, I think so. I think the hope that they have is twofold. One is that they're going to get discovered, or they could escape, or somebody like a neighbor, or they go into a gas station or something, somebody will see that and be aware of it and will do something about it. And the other hope is if they're a little child, this probably doesn't apply, but if they're 9, 10, 11, something like that, they may have had some Christian education. They can be praying for God to give them a way out of that. And that's the best hope that they can have. So those are the two that I think of.
Very good. I'll come back to that. Ken, you have a thought?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little deeper on this, John. I'm thinking that the hope that we can bring to these unfortunate children are the fact that we need to bring this attention to the public. I know, and I have a comment that I'll post up here in a bit from our fearless state director leader, but I think my assessment of providing hope is bringing the awareness to the American public, and for whatever it takes, bringing in a moral aspect that basically allows the general public to, I mean, you can think about the old sayings, you see something, say something, and all those particular cliches that go. But I think if people just are more aware of what's going on and know that it's going on, I think alongside of prayer, the other thing is that we as an American society have to bring back some kind of a moral background, a moral backbone to start to combat this, because to me it's truly an evil aspect, and the only way to fight evil is to bring out more good from people.
I like that. And both Ken and Tim mentioned prayer, and that triggers me or prompts me to say that I really believe that most children around the world, no matter what society, culture, or religion they're being raised in, believe in God, a God, whether it's the God of the Old Testament and New Testament, or some Buddhist God or Hindu God. They believe in God, and children are going to pray, and they're going to beseech and pray to their Heavenly Father to be released from this terrible life and returned back home. So there is some hope. But as we look at the situation overall, there's not a whole lot of hope for someone who's really caught in the clutches of a terribly strong trafficker who controls that child's life 24/7 and profits from it, and then of course sends a lot of those profits back to the cartels, who are the dare I use the word financial geniuses behind this thing. It's an evil genius like Hitler was, but to figure out a way to exploit these children to make the hundreds of millions, maybe billions of dollars that they're making off of this illicit trade. Okay, Ken, did you have a comment from Dale Tipton?
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and post Dale's comment on this.
Sure.
It has more to do with he basically is saying that hope is limited due to our modern media burying these stories, which is totally honest, and limiting the awareness of our ordinary citizens. That kind of goes hand in hand with getting that awareness out there. So I think we do have to recognize that we have a problem with our media, and that would be another way of of combating this to some degree is to we have to get the medias to actually start doing their job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. Thanks, Dale. I appreciate that. Well, the other Dale
Yeah.
Parrish.
I just second that statement that Dale Tipton made. As I was reading that, I was thinking, I don't hear anything on the news. I watch the news every day, and I don't hear a thing about this.
Right.
I can't tell you the last time I saw a news report about this. Now, at least the news sources that I'm watching. Has anybody else seen a news report recently on this issue?
The only thing I've ever seen, and I saw one recently, a report that the FBI broke up a child sex ring and, rescued a couple hundred children and put dozens of men in jail.
Really?
But that's the only news you ever get whenever one of these rings is broken up.
Yeah.
And those reports are few and far between. But you don't ever hear about the story of this little boy, this little girl, and what happened to him or her. Tim, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I just want to say, it seems like we're inundated with stories about social justice warriors who care about trees and, are you burning your leaves or whatever you're doing? But they don't say a thing about this. It really is markedly out of balance that they never talk about these little children, because if you were to bring it up to them and say, okay, so how do you feel about a 9-year-old girl and boy being trafficked and having sex with older men for the next 20 years? They'd hate that, but then they won't talk about it. So
yeah,
I totally agree with what Dale had to say.
All right, Ken.
Got a couple of comments I want to go ahead and post, being that we're getting some action in the chat room. So let's start with the first one. It's from Susan Gervais, and she says this problem has escalated in the U.S. due to our president's open border policy. So how can he justify this? That's the question she wants to know.
Well, Susan, I think he says the border is not open. They have a different definition of a closed border, and it's bogus. It's just bogus.
Yeah. Yeah.
The border is open.
One more comment. Rick Lyon says, I think a root cause is drugs. People selling their kids are not doing it to put food on the tables, but to buy drugs. Drug addiction is the driving force behind this and many other crimes. So we need to clean out the drug cartels. Again, it goes back to the cartels.
True. Thank you, Rick. And that prompts me to say that what we're focusing on is this idea of a child being kidnapped and sold into to a trafficker. But the reading that I've done says the vast majority of children who are being trafficked are being done so by their own families who sell them. They live at home with their parents and they're sold for sex so the parents can buy drugs. And that's the vast majority, according to the best, whatever an expert is, the estimates by the best experts. So we're looking at the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more here that we don't know about and never will know about. But I keep, every so often I hear a story from a 40, 50-year-old adult who says, this is the way I was treated as a child. And they've got lifelong emotional and self-esteem problems as a result of all that. So we've got a tiger by the tail here, friends. We've got a really bad problem on our hands, and hardly anybody's paying any attention to it. Yes, Tim.
Yeah, the issue really is that the United States is being invaded, and our leaders aren't doing anything about it. And we're being invaded by whatever the cartels in China push into our country. This sex trafficking is a bad thing. But you think about how many people are dying of overdoses and fentanyl and all these other things because our administrative leaders, these guys we can't get rid of, say that they want the justice of all these poor people can come here and we'll save them. And actually what they're doing is they're saying America last, and they're abdicating their responsibilities and violating their oath to the Constitution by letting us be invaded by whatever it is, drugs, sex trafficking, whatever it is.
We clearly need a change in the value structure and the decisions that are being made at the federal level. And here's, Convention of States can make a difference in this by implementing the constitutional amendments that we stand in favor of. Well, that kind of wraps up this little segment of it. So we're going to take a short break and hear from some guy named John who has a journal, and he has this contribution that's about deceit. I can't wait to see what he has to say or hear what he has to say. Roll it.
All right.
John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana. George Orwell, who lived basically the first half of the 20th century, 1903 to 1950, wrote two great books, Animal Farm in 1984. If you've not read those books, you owe it to yourself to get them out of your public library if you have to, and read them. They're short, they're easy to read, but they speak volumes. One quote from George Orwell that I really like is this. He wrote, "During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act." We think and talk and study about the American Revolution, our war for independence. Revolutions don't always consist of gunfire. No, they're not always violent. Sometimes, when deceit is all around, just speaking the truth can be a revolutionary act. I'm finding that on the one hand, there has been a trend towards fewer and fewer people willing to speak the truth. But on the other hand, I hope I see a nascent movement of people who are willing to speak the truth. There's a lot of deceit going around. Just watch the news. Read a newspaper. There's no such thing as unbiased news. Even in deciding which stories to report, there's bias. Deciding what headline to put on the story, there's bias. But you look around, keep your eyes and ears open. You'll see all kinds of deceit, covering up the truth. And it takes somebody brave enough, courageous enough to start a revolution by telling the truth. In the federal government, there's a name for these people. They're called whistleblowers, and they are supposedly protected from retaliation. Doesn't always work out that way. But I'm here today to tell you, be a whistleblower. Speak the truth in this time of universal deceit. Well, I don't know where that guy came from, but his words are apropos to this topic. We're speaking the truth about a very disturbing and dark element of American life, and something that the federal government is allowing to happen, except for those rare cases when the FBI busts up a sex ring, like I mentioned a moment ago. And so we here, on behalf of Convention of States, are speaking the truth about child sex trafficking. So my next question for the panel is this. What are the long-term effects on a child who's being trafficked? What does this do to that child for the rest of their life? And let's see, who wants to go first? Maybe Tim does this time.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think it's something they're never going to get over. It's going to have psychological and physical problems. I mean, they may get a sexually transmitted disease, like syphilis or gonorrhea or something that they never get rid of. And clearly, if they ever do escape or get away, how are they going to be able to raise children given the mindset that they have? It's going to affect their marriage. They're not going to have a stable marriage. and they're probably going to damage their children in some way if they ever have children. In many long-term effects, I would say you'll never get over it.
Okay, Gary, can you add to what Tim has just said?
I think a lot of people are familiar with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a set of things that go with somebody who's gone through a very traumatically stressful thing. And people that go through that month after month, potentially year after year, I can't imagine that it's not going to have tragic consequences on their, personal relationships with other people, their inability to trust other people, just all kinds of things. And which is really the reason we just should not permit this to go on, because you can't undo the bad effects that it has on people.
Can't undo it. It's like you can't unring a bell, you can't unscramble an egg, and you can't undo the bad effects of child sex abuse, and especially the terrible plight of being trafficked. Dale, can you add to what's been said already?
Well, in my limited research on this, John, in addition to the mental trauma, the physical trauma that they can experience, they're going to experience the lack of living skills and the lack of interacting with people. They're going to also, according to my research, evidently many of them feel ostracized. They feel isolated. They don't feel a part of our society. So I guess maybe that kind of falls under the mental trauma part. But I guess the fact is, or the conclusion is, that these are going to be damaged adults. Damaged. They're going to grow up to be damaged individuals. So, in one way or another.
I think that's true, even if they get help, even if they get therapy, even if they get treatment for their PTSD, that damage is going to be with them, and they'll never forget the horrible childhood that they had. Ken, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and I'm gonna cite a study, even though it's a couple years old. It's going to be a little bit more of this was more of a localized study, so I really want to kind of bring this to our immediate areas. And I want to preface it again with, this is a couple years old, but we don't know the amount of people that are involved, the amount of children that are actually, trafficked at this point. So the numbers, we really can't put a full number on it. But I'm going to cite a study that was done by the National Library of Medicine, and it examined suicidal ideation and behavior in a convenience sample of youths age 12 through 25 that were experiencing homelessness in the metropolitan Louisville, Kentucky, and southern Indiana areas. The participants were asked 7 questions regarding suicidal ideation and attempts as a part of an enhanced version of the 60-item youth experience survey, or YES as it's been termed. And the results were that approximately 53% of the sample reported experiencing suicidal ideation at some point in their lifetime. And the odds of a youth experiencing homelessness who had experienced sex trafficking reported suicidal ideation was 3.87 times higher than the odds of a youth experiencing just homelessness. Additionally, of those who reported experiencing suicidal ideation, the majority, 84.4%, reported they had attempted suicide in their lifetime. So, and suicide is linked up with what Gary was talking about too. The PTSD, the linkage to a suicide attempts and thoughts in PTSD is a much more recent and broad study, and the suicidal connections are extremely high.
Yeah, it seems to me that if a child is caught in that kind of an unspeakable, inescapable situation, death by suicide might be the only possible escape. It might seem to them that suicide is the only possible escape. And I can understand that intellectually. In my gut, it makes me sick. but intellectually, I can understand that. Any other comments from the panel or from the viewership?
We have some comments. I'll go ahead and put them up because obviously, as we said, this is a tough topic to talk about. So I'll start with a couple. We actually have three here that I'm going to go ahead and post. Our first one is from Susan Lyon, and she says some young parents believe in a free-range parenting style because they don't believe there's any danger for their children, and they believe that most missing children are taken by non-custodial parents. So she wants to know how we can educate them first. That's one question. I guess I'll show all of these and we can just hit them as we can. But Susan Gervais says this is an issue that we used to associate with a third world country. Now, like homelessness, it's being normalized in the USA. And the last comment we have is from Sly Wolf D, and he says if you believe that only on a Fed level this has been and is going on, you are sadly misled.
I don't know who Sly Wolf is, but I think they're right.
That's
We
an
appreciate
interesting
Sly Wolf
comment.
tuning in. Yeah.
It's not just the federal level. Yep. But, you know, we talk about it because that's our concern in Convention of States, federal reform. Okay. Any response from anybody about any of those comments that Ken just put up there?
Yeah, I would just like to say that I've read and heard numerous times that the cartels make more money from human trafficking than they do from drugs or other, things they bring across the border. And so I don't know, as Sly Wolf pointed out, this kind of money could be used to buy off government officials, state, local, county, whatever. And so that's part of the breadth of the problem, is that there is so much money involved, and makes it very challenging for honest people to overcome that sort of thing.
Yeah, extremely challenging. Dale?
Ken, can you put that first comment up again, Susan Lyon's comment? Can you put that? Yeah. Young parents believe in a free-range parenting style because they don't believe there's any danger for their children. I think, man, that's a pretty good insight, I think. You've heard it said in our society that how children don't respect authority any longer. The norms are changing, have changed, and I don't know, perhaps this issue is having an impact on that in some way or another. I think that's just an interesting concept that Susan has put up there, because the parenting style of today has definitely changed.
Yeah.
Let me add one more comment that I think is crucial to that, and this is again from our state director leader here, Dale Tipton, says that drugs can only be sold one time. Children can be sold multiple times per day for years.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's right. Yep.
Much more profitable than drugs, I guess, huh?
Yeah, you sell the drug and it's gone, but you can sell that child 10, 15 times a night.
Yeah.
This really is an awareness issue. I mean, that's what the problem is, I think, because there's got to be some large percentage of Americans, like maybe 99%, who would react if they knew a child was being trafficked. If they were aware of it, they would do something about it, tell a policeman or something. But we just don't have any awareness. It's just such a shame. I was just sitting here while you guys were talking, and I went on Facebook and I went to all the news agencies in Indianapolis, and I just sent them a note. I said, when are you guys going to do some stories on child sex trafficking? We need to get the awareness up in the community to save some of these children. So we'll see if that gets anything. But maybe people that are listening to this channel tonight could do that too. Contact their local news media or send them a Facebook message or something, and just try to get them to make us more aware.
Good move, Tim. Thank you. I like it, because we want to be active in finding solutions. We are activists for positive change in our culture, right, Dale?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. I remember wasn't last year in COS Indiana the year of activism, but we still want to be active. And an old saying that I really like is that the wheel that squeaks gets the grease.
Mm.
And so if we rally around and lobby these news organizations, eventually they might start to listen. So thank you, Tim, for that suggestion. Dale?
Problem is there are a lot of squeaky wheels out there. So the competition to get attention is very, very hard.
We got to squeak louder and longer. Okay. Well, before we move to some possible solutions, I've got one more question that takes it from the individual child and broadens it out to society. And I want to ask the panel to kick this one around for a couple minutes. What are the corrosive effects of child sex trafficking on society? What does it do to the social order? And I guess I'll go to Tim this time. Tim, what do you think about that?
It's a moral breakdown of our society. It's not just what we're doing to the kids, but it's the people that use those kids. It's the abusers. Look what's happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting numb to what they're doing. They don't realize how much they're hurting the child. So how much will they hurt other people too, their family members or people that they work with on the job? This corrosion is just wrecks the whole society on all levels.
Yeah. And a human being becomes an object to be used rather than a person to be in relationship with. That's corrosive. Gary, you have any thoughts on that question?
John, I think the whole idea of an open border, which leads to this human trafficking issue, it causes a general disrespect for law. It causes people to see our government, I think, as corrupt, that this is going on to such a large extent. It's being tolerated. It's not being talked about in the media. I think it just cheapens human life, and it makes people gain a perception that our society is really corrupt and uncaring, and that's a tragic thing.
Mm-hmm.
You look at our history, we've been a people that have started, thousands of organizations for social benefit, one kind or another, clubs and so forth, Rotary, Kiwanis, all those things. And the fact that we tolerate this is indicative of this breakdown of society and the dissolution of really the history of our country and what we have come from, and gives you an indication of the direction we're going.
Dale?
When I think about the effects on society, I think about and it's kind of related to Ken's comment about the financial aspect here, but all of the resources in our society, financial, medical, psychological, social, this issue and these children as they grow up are going to demand more and more resources for their treatment, for their well-being. And that means those resources won't be available for other issues in our society. So the effect basically is a drain on the resources of our society.
Good point. I hadn't thought of that one. Gary, back to you.
Yeah, one other comment to make about this, and that is that psychologists will tell you that if this happens in one generation, sex trafficking, these kind of crimes, they tend to proliferate in the next generation and the one after that. And so we're really creating a generational problem that is very difficult to deal with.
Yes, indeed. Ken, I'll give you last swing at this fastball.
Yeah, the corrosive effects. I don't know if I really have anything more to add than what's already been said, other than the fact that the corrosive effects, I think, Well, I'll save my comment. I have a comment which really probably fits more in with solutions that I think we're going to talk
Okay.
about here
Yeah,
shortly.
we'll come around to that. Just before we do, I just want to mention that I think it has a terrible corrosive effect on the morality of our country, that it's American citizens who are paying to have sex with children, and I mean, just the depravity that we, not you and me, but we, the people of the United States, and it's a shameful thing, are the customers who make this trade possible. And I just can't wrap my mind around the long-term terrible effect that's having on the social order, the morality or immorality of Americans who willingly pay for this kind of thing. Okay, Ken, what you got?
You got a comment that fits right in with what you're saying, John. So I'm going to go ahead and post that. It's from Rick Lyon. He says, years ago, the effort to fight prostitution was to prosecute the buyer, to intimidate and embarrass the customer. It is evil to sell a child, but how much more evil is it to buy one? Who is buying these children?
Yeah, Rick, I wish we knew. Of course, when the FBI breaks up a child sex ring, we never get the names of the people they arrest, but those are the ones who are buying and selling, and they know who the customers are, and it just sickens me. Ken?
The comments keep coming, and now we're going to hit a little bit on what you were just commenting there, John, and that is basically the law. Sly Wolf has commented a little bit about the law, but he puts up two more points here. I would just want to go ahead and flash up. And the evil ones partaking in these acts must fear even partaking in these evil crimes. Trying to rescue is too late. He must prevent it altogether. And then he added one more interesting comment, which has to do with the law. And I'm all for this answer. He wants to know, where is Epstein's client list, and how about those arrests?
Well, that is kind of funny. I laugh at it, but it's indicative of the cover-up. Epstein trafficked young girls.
He focused on that, didn't he? He focused on
it. Yeah. And it's been covered up. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up, Sly Wolf.
Good point.
Let's turn the corner and think about a few positive things. What in the world can we do about child sex trafficking? I'm going to start with Dale this time.
Well, whenever we start talking about solutions, I got to always throw this out. How about calling for a convention of states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution that might help address this situation?
What a brilliant thought. Thank you for bringing it up. Because, I mean, that's the only reason that this roundtable exists.
That's why we're talking about this.
To promote this. And so let's redouble our efforts to get that convention up and running. Okay. Thanks, Dale. Gary, what do you think we can do about this?
Well, somebody else mentioned this earlier, but I think this is a really salient point, that term limits. We've got a whole lot of elected officials that are unwilling, apparently, to do much of anything about this. And as was mentioned with the Epstein client list, there's people high up in government that are protecting people. And if we get term limits, maybe we start throwing an awful lot of people out of there and get in some people who are more responsive to we the people. And we can only do that really with a convention of states, because we're not going to term limit otherwise.
That's right. Congress will never limit its own power. And neither will the deep state. Okay. Tim, what are your thoughts?
Well, I completely agree with what the other two men just said, but on top of that, think about what's happened with the Black Lives Matter and the defund the police movements. How much of our law enforcement has been wiped out because of those two movements, and how many of those guys are demoralized now and are leaving the profession And now you see the number of border agents committing suicide. All that's a piece of this. How could we ever stop these people if we're not going to have any law enforcement people? So besides general awareness of the problem, we got to keep fighting against those movements that are reducing our law enforcement resources.
Good point. It's another thing I had not thought of. Ken and then Dale.
Well, I want to kind of piggyback on Dale's original, where we're talking about Convention of States and how we can address this. But my immediate thought is, with the stroke of a pen, we could take 87,000 newly formed IRS agents and put them on the border.
Ooh.
There you go. There you go.
Well, we can't, but somebody can.
Right.
We, the people, can see that gets done.
We the people could get that started, really. But
love it. Okay, Dale.
Yeah, I wanted to mention again what Tim mentioned in a previous question about his reaching out to local media outlets in the I think it was in the Indianapolis area, that he said, in other words, working to try and increase the awareness of this issue through our media. Our media is so powerful in this country, that the way I believe the way to increase awareness is in fact through the media, and certainly we're going to promote this movie coming up that's out now, Sounds of Freedom.
Yes, we are, and we're going to.
Yeah, which is another form of media.
It is.
There needs to be more of this. And we need to encourage journalists and people in the media to give some focus to this issue.
So since you brought it up, let's do that right now. We want to show our viewers the trailer for The Sound of Freedom, the movie I talked about in the introduction back at the beginning of this hour. And this really goes toward raising public awareness of this problem. Let's see the trailer.
How'd that make you feel? Giving a child his freedom.
Felt good.
You have been at this for 12 years.
My country, 'tis of thee.
Why are you doing it?
Sweet land of liberty.
Because God's children are not for sale. It is the fastest growing international crime network that the world has ever seen.
For Homeland Security, we can't go off rescuing Honduran kids in Colombia.
This job tears you to pieces. And this is my one chance to put those pieces back together.
And yet somehow, you have failed to bring me one real-world lead.
It's over, Tim. Close up and come back home.
So you quit your job and you go and rescue those kids.
South of that river is all rebel territory. No one goes in.
What if this was your daughter?
So, she's gone. Hear that? That's the sound of freedom.
Sound of Freedom is one of those films that can legitimately change this world. So we want to ignite a fire in audiences and open their eyes to the dark reality of millions of children that need our help. Let's make this film a historic event and the start of the end of child trafficking. Theaters across this country are already selling out. Pre-order your tickets today, and you can send the message that God's children are no longer for sale.
The Sound of Freedom. It opened last month on Independence Day, July the 4th. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you see it. It's still in the theaters. And I want to point out that we, Convention of States Indiana, are in no way connected with that movie, its producers or sponsors. We just think it is a powerful tool to help raise public awareness of this terrible problem. Tim?
Yeah, John, I just wanted to say two things about that movie. One is I was struck by how at the end of that movie, they go to this private island where a bunch of rich men are buying these girls and boys. Pretty similar to what we were talking about Epstein a little while ago. And secondly, I think that little boy and that little girl should get Academy Awards for being in that movie. Their faces, the faces that they made during that movie were just, what a wonderful acting job for kids that age.
Yes, indeed. I agree with you, but we know they won't get any Academy Awards because this movie doesn't fit the narrative that the left wants us to believe in. Any other comments on the movie, the trailer we just saw? Dale, Ken, Gary, anybody?
I might just say that this broadcast of the roundtable will be recorded, and share it with your friends if this is an issue that concerns you. Encourage other people to watch this and maybe increase their awareness as well.
Sure, it's being recorded right now, and it will be available on Facebook and on YouTube. People can share the link with their friends. Watch this conversation. Ken?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that it is powerful. I saw it, and it is very powerful. And I think we've talked about media and sharing it, getting it out. I know we talked about this as we kind of rehearsed for this broadcast, and know that this movie has outproduced the latest Indiana Jones movie.
Yeah.
So people are going to see it, and people are going to know more about it. So we have to continue to share it. And I think, again, we've talked about this in a number of different areas, but we have power in numbers, and we really do need to get the numbers in our country up and aware of this problem in order to even start to make a dent in curtailing it and then eliminating it, hopefully, in the future.
Yes, indeed. Powerful statement. Okay, thank you. I want to thank all the panel members for your research and your input in tonight's roundtable. It's been a great conversation. See all of you next month. Right now, I want to show you a video of a conversation I had with our state director, Dale Tipton, telling you how you can get involved with Convention of States Indiana. Indiana needs you. About how they can become involved in Convention of States.
You bet. There's an effort that we've had ongoing for a while where we're communicating through links that deal with recruitment. As an organization, we have a lot of positions to fill, and positions have to be filled by volunteers. And if we're going to become citizen activists, which we really have to do to make a change in our government, people need to take positive steps to do things so that we can turn this ship of government around. And in Indiana, for example, we have 100 House districts, and we appoint what we call a district captain in each one of those districts. And in this particular link, this is a direct appeal for people to volunteer to become district captains, whereby they would be tasked with being the liaison between the people within that district and their elected representatives, their senator and their local representative. And then also they are responsible for spreading the word about Convention of States through various ideas, such as town halls or parade events or any kind of thing like that, where we can, mix in with the public, block walking, any number of things. And this allows direct involvement at a fairly high level where you're really your own manager and you will have all the assistance that you need, but the tools are presented there for you so that you can become an advocate for Convention of States and make a difference. And the other thing that's pointed out here, more towards the top of the page, is we are a past state. In February of 2016, Indiana signed the resolution. So as we try to recruit people, oftentimes we hear, well, you guys passed the resolution. It's been done a long time ago. What else is there to do? And there's a list here on this page of all of the different things, or many of the different things that we can do as individuals to support both the ongoing effort in Indiana, and then how we can also assist neighboring states that maybe haven't passed the resolution yet. And so this is kind of the latest thing we've got. And this is ultimately the easiest thing we've done, because the application is literally at the bottom of the page that you can fill out to become a district captain. So it's a one-click deal and you're there. And we're hoping some people will sign up to join the COS revolution.
Well, this brings us to the end of this month's roundtable. Before I say goodbye, I want to give you our email address. If you have any questions at all about Convention of States, you can email them to us at that address, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next Monday, September the 4th at 7 p.m. Eastern for our next COS Indiana Live. And our next roundtable will be on the 4th Monday of September. That will be September 25th at 7 p.m. Eastern. And to close us out, here's a message from our national COS president, Mark Meckler, called "The Day I'll Quit Fighting."
I struggle to empathize with people who would give up. It doesn't make sense to me. Sam Adams said, for those of you who prefer safety and security over liberty, over the animating fight for liberty, I hope that you enjoy licking the hands that feed you. May your chains rest lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are our countrymen. Like, do you understand that your kids, and you are sentencing your kids and your grandkids and your friends' kids and your neighbors' kids to a lifetime of slavery and servitude, literally, of fear, of living in the darkness? But never, ever, never, never, never give up. George Washington lost the majority of his battles that he fought in the American Revolution. If you read his writings, if you read the letters where he was writing to Congress asking for money and troops, he was saying, we're losing. I don't have the troops I need. I don't have the supplies I need. Did he quit? What about the guys on the beach at Normandy? Like, what did they do? Did they just quit? Oh, there's, a lot of guys are dying around me. It's really bad. It looks really dismal. Those cliffs are huge. Machine gun fire raining down on us. And it's too hard. We should just quit. Thank God those people didn't quit. If they had, where would we be? I get discouraged, for sure. And I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.